This is ridiculous. Eric DeCosta is a terrorist, and he is determined to make sure that the state of Maryland burns to the ground. I am fully convinced of this. The Ravens just signed 35-year-old Desean Jackson to a deal. Nothing about this is gonna matter. Nothing about this. I'm seeing people in these different comment sections. They're acting like this is an amazing move. This is a terrible move. You guys are just feeling nostalgic because you're thinking about when he was in his prime 10 years ago. Like, come on, man. I've never denied that this guy at his peak was one of the best deep threats of all time. He was a great player, but at the same time, this dude played when I was in middle school. And this is not a Tom Brady type of player or a Von Miller type of player or somebody who all these years later they're still playing at a high level and still aren't dealing with as many injuries as Desean Jackson. No, this is a guy who's more like the typical NFL player at this stage of their career, at this age. They are not somebody you can rely on to come through and make a difference. Not only make a difference, but also even stay healthy for a full season. This is a waste of time. Why in the world are you worried about signing Desean Jackson? The Ravens have no intention of winning. They have zero intention of winning. They have zero intention of signing Lamar. They're probably going to try to tag him next year. They're better off just letting Lamar leave so he can find a team that actually cares about him, that actually wants to win. The Ravens have no intention of winning. They suck. EDC sucks. This is embarrassing. This is a team that is cool being mediocre. They're cool being just good enough to have a slightly winning record and getting bounced out of the first round. They have no intention of winning. These are not the type of moves that you prioritize. Like a player like this is not the type of move you prioritize when the Cardinals just got Robbie Anderson and they essentially gave up like a 6th round pick and they went and got Robbie Anderson. Even though Ravens fans wanted DJ Moore, Ravens fans would have still been very happy if you had at least got Robbie Anderson. So you're going to go out and get a washed up receiver like y'all always do, and you think that's enough to make a difference on this team? That's not going to do anything. You signed Andy Isabella. What has that done? You keep signing people who don't matter. What has that done? And then I'm seeing people in some of these comments, they're trying to make excuses, and they're trying to make excuses and defend the Ravens and say, oh, well, receivers aren't aching to go to Baltimore. No, receivers aren't aching to go to places where they're going to be underpaid. And the Ravens have no intention of actually paying what these players are worth, because especially on offense, they don't want to pay what these players are worth because they are cheap and they don't care about winning. That's what it boils down to. Players don't care. Players aren't interested. They're not aching to go places where they're going to be underpaid. That's what it boils down to. Because guess what? I don't care what team you're talking about. If the team actually offers a player what they're worth, or in some cases a little bit more than what they're worth to incentivize them to come, any player will go anywhere. The Lions have had a reputation of being losers for 50 years now. Guess what? If the Lions had offered Davante Adams $75 million a year, I guarantee you Davante Adams would have been in Detroit right now. If the Lions had offered Tyreek Hill $75 million a year, I guarantee you Tyreek Hill would have been in Detroit right now. Any player will go anywhere if you just pay them. There is no excuse. And then part of the reason that they'll go if you just pay them is actually beyond the money, because at the end of the day, if you pay them, they're gonna know, hey, look, it is a 99.9% chance that they're gonna go out of their way to use me, to properly use me and make me a big part of the offense, because they already paid for that. They already invested in that. It wouldn't make sense to pay somebody what they're worth in like a high amount of money, and then, you don't use them in the offense at all. So that's another reason on top of the money itself why players absolutely will go anywhere if you actually just pay them. The Ravens don't want to pay people. They think they could go bargain shopping at a fucking thrift shop and get some washed up receivers that they can get at the right deal, talking this nonsense about right player, right price, when all that means is, oh, let's try to get somebody that we don't gotta pay anything for, and let's hope he outperforms his contract. And that's not gonna happen. This Desean Jackson move isn't gonna make a major difference. At best, you might get 1 or 2 plays here and there where he might actually do something, or he might get like a 50-yard touchdown or whatever, but this is not actually going to help the team. This is definitely not a long-term solution. It's definitely not a long-term solution. Because I guarantee you Desean Jackson won't be on this team next year. I'm willing to bet money on that. Desean Jackson will not be on this team next year. Just like they went out and got Sammy Watkins last year, another injury-prone veteran. And then guess what happened? He gave us 4 good games, and the rest of the year he was a non-factor. And a year later, guess what? He's not on the team. What is the point of this? The point of this is that they don't want to pay Lamar Jackson, and they are trying to sabotage him, and they have no interest in winning. And they also, like I said, they're not trying to pay him, so they're not actually interested in giving him the tools that actually would produce results. I'm not gonna say by himself, but he already, for the most part, by himself, has broken record after record after record, has the most wins by any quarterback under 25, breaking Dan Marino's record, a unanimous MVP, multiple Pro Bowls, all pro caliber player. He's already done more than anybody ever thought he would, with some of the weakest receivers in the league surrounding him. It doesn't take a genius to say, hey, let's actually go out there and put some elite talent around him like these other teams have done with their players, and let's see how far he can go with that. They're not doing that. And you got a bunch of brainwashed idiots in this fan base who are trying to convince themselves and are trying to convince other people that, oh, if you just go out there, let me rephrase that. There's a bunch of brainwashed idiots in the fan base who they're trying to convince themselves and other people that this front office knows what they're doing. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because even if you say they know what they're doing, that means they definitely are trying to sabotage this team. They're definitely trying to sabotage this team. It doesn't take a genius to see what are the biggest problems of the past 2 to 3 years have been related to offense. The biggest problems on offense for the past several seasons boils down to the offensive line sucks. The offensive line sucks. Greg Roman is a mediocre offensive coordinator, and this team has no weapons at wide receiver. Now, as much as I've criticized Greg Roman, we also still have to acknowledge that, hey, just like how you're not giving Lamar much weapons, you're not giving Greg Roman much weapons either. And y'all clearly are refusing to get rid of him. But again, you don't want to actually go out there and give him weapons that would give these guys weapons that would make a difference. And I can't say too much. I've tried not to say too much about the offensive line this year, because even though it's looked shaky at times, I do still think they look much better than last year. But again, there's still the big gaping hole in this team that's been the big gaping hole for years now, boils down to wide receiver. This wide receiver, there is no serious threat on this team. Rashad Bateman has still not come into his own yet. He's still, even though many of us believe he has potential and he's shown flashes of greatness, he still has a lot of problems so far. He still is playing like a young player who's still trying to figure it out. Like, come on, as much as we complain about Hollywood's drops, Rashad Bateman also has a drop problem. Come on, man. He still has a drop problem. He still fumbled, a couple passes. And now he's out with the injury again. So now in his second season in a row, he's dealing with the injury problem. It's too early to say he's injury prone, but at the same time, it's not looking great so far. You gotta go out there and get somebody who can be a serious threat. Because as it stands right now, Rashad is what would be considered our biggest threat, and even he's not that big of a threat at this point in his career. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not somebody who just hit the ground running. He's somebody who we think has potential, but he hasn't lived up to that yet. Why would you not go out of your way to go bring in somebody who actually can make a serious difference? They're just wasting time. This is embarrassing. This is mind-blowing. And some of you guys really want to sit here and pretend like this is a team that's well run and knows what they're doing. The media keeps lying to people and telling people that this is a well run team that knows what they're doing. No, this is not. This is a terribly run team full of cheap bastards. This is not a well run team. This is not a well ran team. Like, this is ridiculous. You look at all these teams and they went out and surrounded their quarterback with elite talent. You look at the Bills and they put Stephon Diggs around Josh Allen. They put Stephon Diggs there. They got Gabe Davis. They got Knox or whatever his name is. They actually went out and built a solid base. Just Stephon Diggs alone is so elite that that's all it took for Josh Allen to actually start looking like a good QB. Because as much as people want to hype up Josh Allen now, nobody wants to talk about how the first 2 years before he got receivers, he looked terrible. Nobody wants to talk about that anymore. Nobody wants to acknowledge that anymore. They just want to act like he's the second coming of John Elway, and they don't want to acknowledge the elephant in the room that, hey, this guy, even though he himself has improved independent of any receiver, this is still a guy who, like most quarterbacks, when he didn't have weapons, he looked bad. And the main difference between Lamar and a lot of these guys is Lamar to this day still hasn't been given those weapons, but he has outperformed his situation. The solution is obvious, and they have no and the solution is obvious, and so far they're looking like they have no interest in actually winning or doing anything about the clear problem. So let me know what I'm going on too long at this point. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Let me know what players you do think the Ravens should have signed or traded for before this deadline. And let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a difference do you think Desean Jackson signing to this team is actually going to make?